Welcome to the RBC podcast. I'm initiated by Rahul Suri, the show that we meet people, understand their struggles, and going memory lane journey. So today our guest is Tripathi, and he would be letting us know more about geopolitics and yeah, you can start soon.
Sure, Tavleen, thank you for the introduction. So, I am Harsh. I'm from Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. Currently, I'm residing in Noida, and I'm working as a product analyst at Smart Energy Water, which is basically a software as a service company in the utility domain. When we talk about utility domain, we're essentially talking about the different types of energies, basically gas, we have electricity, we have water. So primarily the company is working in these domains and it's providing software solutions to organizations and corporations working in this domain. As Savleen mentioned, I'm here to talk about essentially my interests, and of course, I intend to discuss things about geopolitics because that's one of my interests. Apart from that, my hobbies are piano. I do like playing piano, and it was a hobby I picked during the lockdown. Apart from that, my interests include and debating, and I also do enjoy, going to the gym. Just try to make that as part of my routine, which is essentially, something that I believe that we all should do. And yes, that's primarily my main areas of interest. I've always been into debating and public speaking, and which makes me very much look forward towards this interview. And I really appreciate the opportunity given to me by Rahul. And I would like to take this forward with you. Thank you so much.
So can I ask you like one question that how did you develop like as a student interest in geopolitics? Since it's like a wide topic and people generally like as a student I feel that many people are like okay we don't want to be in that geopolitics wala area and we need to think about other domains or talk about other things that okay cartoons vagera and all that stuff. So how did you develop as a child in that?
Okay, so my main interest in geopolitics actually started when I was enduring the lockdown phase. So it was just this one habit that I had developed that, whenever I would just sit down to, have my lunch or dinner, I would just try and pick some video from either Vox or maybe Study IQ or all these other channels which were extensively and very analytically covering the COVID pandemic, right? And through that, God bless the YouTube algorithm, I also started to got like recommended all these other videos on geopolitics which Vox had covered, right? And then I also started to, religiously follow Study IQ videos as well. So even this is a habit, I still try and follow that, whenever I'll be sitting down to just have my lunch or maybe dinner, I'll just put on a video, just try and get up to speed with whatever latest is happening. And answering the other part of the question, which is why people should care about geopolitics, even students per se. I
Yeah.
believe that ironically, most of the geopolitical issues as of right now are between border states. But the consequences of those actually have no borders. If you can just, think about the Russia-Ukraine war, it's just happening between two major countries in Europe, right? What does India or USA have to do with it? But as you can see, the economies of both these countries, and not just these two countries, but all the other countries essentially involved either in foreign relations or trade with these countries is getting affected. Which is why I believe that geopolitical issues actually do concern and should concern a lot of us. And it's an area where I would actually urge a lot of students and even professionals to, just read up more about. You don't essentially even have to read up, even if you just do your due diligence in terms of just watching some YouTube videos, I think it should do enough to, get up to speed with whatever is happening.
All right. So I just wanted to ask, like, have you heard about the statement? Like, somebody said, like, Kishore Mahubani said that geopolitical uh, things are like a, a cruel business. So, what is your take about on this thing? Since it,
I think it's an interesting take and also a very obvious one. Like, firstly, we need to understand why did he even mention the word business, right? So the fact of the matter is that if we're taking the example of, let's just say, the Russia-Ukraine war, so the problem here is that USA is a third party stakeholder in this, right? But they are directly influencing the results and the outcomes of this war by supplying and selling weapons to Ukraine. So indirectly, while we could say that on the surface level, the US economy is suffering because of this war, but they're also profiting off these wars because they're sending and supplying weapons to essentially any major conflict that's happening. So their own economy is feeding off of these geopolitical crisis, which is why we need to understand why this is a business, right? So, in my opinion, yes, definitely it's a very cruel business because when these corporations like Lockheed Martin and all, which are there based in US, they're just having these deals with these countries for weapons. It's actually ultimately like the innocent people who are suffering, and they're the reason why these people are getting all these types of weapons. So of course it's a cruel business, and when we need to understand the the evil things that are happening in the back end or the background to be more related towards actually knowing about these issues. So yes, I firmly support, and I even gave you the reason why he believes that.
uh, all right. So, since we are like, I've seen like many things like in geopolitics, India has a major role since half of like in the world that we have the largest population, I guess. So yeah, so we have an important role. We have a major role. So what is your take? How can India be important in geopolitics, and what should we take right now? At since many things are going on in the countries, in the world actually. So yeah, even in the country.
Okay, so I would believe that we're actually very fortunate to be, witnessing the golden era of Indian, geopolitical stake and foreign policy. Having a dynamic leader like S. Shankar at the top position is actually a very bold and wise decision by the cabinet, and I'll tell you why. The thing is that if we had a person who was any less vocal or any less bold than what S. Jayashankar is, then not a lot of people would actually even get to know what's India's stance on all these, major geopolitical issues. I mean, that guy has the guts to go on European, business forums, and when actually asked about the fact that India is buying Russian oil, he actually, gives them back at their face the hypocrisy, right? That they should firstly check the usage and the business that Europe is doing with Russia, right? Which is anyway involved in the war. So indirectly, Europe is funding the war, but they're trying to shift that blame towards India just because India decided to buy cheap Russian oil. So, India is actually at that playing field where, we can take geopolitical stances on the basis of our own personal interests rather than, being concerned about a third person country's opinion or their suggestions. So I think it's a very, very, dynamic and golden era of Indian foreign policy and geopolitics that we're witnessing, which is why I guess I also happen to have a keen interest in this field.
So, all right. So I just wanted to ask that since you told us before also that students should take like this as a really good and important field so that they can know about more about geopolitics. So, do you think that conferences are going on, like MUNs are going on, and many of the circuits are there? So do you think that students in like student life we should participate in MUNs or debating conferences so that we could know more about globe and yeah.
Okay, so I myself am a product of those things. So I used to be involved in MUNs, and I was actually the president of my own debating society in college as well. So I myself am a product and an example of those things and why those are important. Because uh, I would say that the development should actually start from your school. Like you should have that base ready from your school so that in college you're actually able to like confidently explore, because your first second years are the ones where you're most free to actually take part in activities, right? And if you've already figured out a niche within your school life itself, then you can better utilize those years, because in trying out stuff, a lot of people actually also give time where there's not a lot of potential for growth, or at least it may not be that much of an interest to them. So I would definitely urge anyone to, be more active in terms of participating in MUNs, debating competitions, be it your school or be it your college. I would really implore students to do that, because, first of all, it obviously improves your public speaking capability, and it puts you into situations where you have to speak to people and you might not necessarily be that prepared. So that is the level it gives you, that you could boldly and confidently hold conversations. And from the diplomatic standpoint, obviously it is a very, very fruitful experience that you're actually trying to simulate how a diplomat is supposed to conduct or take decisions at a forum, right? MUNs are a good example of that. So yes, my answer is a very, very strong yes.
Alright. So even in like my life, I have seen that geo people those who are connected to geopolitics have a different point of view to see the globe, and their things are like they see everything with logics and the ethics purpose, and people those are normal citizens of the globe, they see things morally. So, what's your take to the people who support things morally, or you? Since people those are connected to the geopolitics domain, they know why these things are happening and why these things are not happening. But people those who are giving their point of view on something like Ukraine war, I guess. So yeah, so they would be seeing things morally, and they would be seeing that India should take because we have got the students here, so you know what I mean. So yeah, what's your take on
Yeah.
that?
So I would say that any normal citizen should actually be open to both types of arguments. For example, if you're taking the Russia-Ukraine example, right? Obviously, I do understand that morally it is very wrong for Russia to, just launch a full-scale uh, special operation on Ukraine, and which has lasted for like well over a year now. Obviously, that is morally very wrong. But from the logical standpoints, I would say that the actions of NATO in this, their own actions were begging for a response, because they were doing their very bit to provoke Russia to actually do something. And it makes logical sense as well, because obviously who is which is the country which is actually benefiting the most out of this? It's obviously United States of America, which is why they were constantly trying to expand eastwards when it came to NATO. So in my opinion, I would say it's obviously important to consider both sides of the arguments. Like I do, like I'm open to both sides of whether it's a logical reason or logical argument, or whether it's a moral reason or a moral argument. But I think we should collectively try and meet a middle ground here. There is no black and white scenario here. Like from the like from the point of view where people who are very much learned and educated in this field, I would say that, so even if you know the facts, you should understand the morality or the emotions behind such conflicts. And from the side where people might not necessarily have a lot of knowledge about the conflict or even the context, I would actually urge them to know more of the context and then try to argue or debate with people. So yeah, that would be my take.
So, and even I really wanted to ask about one thing that since there are many a times people give their opinions about something, and conflicts happen in between people. Those are not even knowing the real context behind the situation or the thing. So, what would you say, to people that is half knowledge really dangerous or not? Since just that statement is true or not in every context. Like,
I think half knowledge is actually more dangerous than no knowledge, because I mean, I can just give a very plain example. So when the CA riots were going on, um, I was watching this news channel, I cannot remember the name, and one of the reporters actually asked one of the protesters that, अच्छा चलिए आप बताइए CA का full form क्या है? So that guy said chartered accountant या कुछ करके. So that is the level, you know, and this guy must have believed some stuff that a few people would have told him. He did not have any knowledge about what CA was, what it stood for, what are essentially the arguments of the proponents or the opponents. He had no knowledge, just a few things that were fed to him by someone. And he decided to, just be a participant of these riots. So, in my opinion, half knowledge is more dangerous than no knowledge. And obviously, there's no thing as full knowledge, but you should actually come to, like, you should try and understand uh, things, perspective, and points to the level that you're even able to make sense of why someone else is actually having a different opinion than you. So, when we used to prepare for our debates, right, in college, so we would often try that out of the three people, two people would be looking for the arguments which we have to debate about, and one person would be assigned the responsibility of finding the points of the opposition, so that we would know that why would they be thinking a certain opinion, right? And then we can try and look for better counters of that. So you should come and acquire knowledge about a perspective or about an issue to the point that you're even able to make sense out of why there could be potentially any opposition to it.
all right, thank you. So at last, I really wanted to ask that, so what is since this domain is really big, and I guess there are many things when we are talking about geopolitics. So it is related to our personality development also, since we are able to be diplomatic, and we also gain confidence, since even if our country is in a crisis, or we are suffering from anything, so we have that state that we can think wisely, since we know many things, and we know all the logics behind that, and we have that thing in our mind ki, okay, we have to see pros and cons, and we have to act wisely. So what is your take that how geopolitics is essential to be known by every
Structuring your
person? Yeah,
argument or
yeah,
how
yeah.
you should see, I think it's not specifically like in that sense, just to teach you how you should like debate with people. I don't think that can solely be done from geopolitics itself. But yes,
But
geopolitics is a field where you need to know a lot of facts, you need to know a lot of context, you need to obviously apply your logic as well, right? So it involves all these different types of critical and analytical skills, which essentially, enable you to, debate or argue in a certain way. I would say that is the whole essence of this field. It is not specific that this is the only field, but yes, in reference to your question, I would say that it does teach you a way of, communicating with people, because not everything, see, there could be a lot of topics where you don't have to have any historical background, right? You don't have to have any knowledge of facts. We both could essentially debate on purely moral grounds, right? There is not much scope for logic, I would say, right?
Mm.
Because when you're trying to apply logic to emotional or moral situations, it starts to feel wrong. And when you start to feel apply moral to situations which require a logical solution, then it starts to feel wrong, right? So it
Yeah.
just teaches you a way of communication, I would agree, but that is not something that is specifically to this field. But yes, I did make you understand, or at least try to explain, that what are the different kind of skills that actually go into this field and communicating about this field, which do ensure that you are definitely aware of a way of communication with people.
Thank you for letting us know mm, much about geopolitics, and even some of my doubts are cleared by this conversation. So, yeah,
That's actually amazing. Yeah, I'm really glad for that.
thank you, sir, for joining us. So,
It's a pleasure.
this is the like end of the interview, I guess. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you so much, Saveen. You've been a very, very gracious and warm moderator. And I'm sure you were definitely very patient in listening all the responses as well. So thank you a lot. And it was actually very, very good, being, interviewed by you and actually given this opportunity, because this was a topic that I occasionally do get an opportunity to talk to my friends, but obviously not this time. So I'm actually very glad of this opportunity, and thank you so much, Taveen. It was great having, like,
thank you,
being
Harsh.
interviewed with you. Okay, thank you.